I'm at the European Climate Change Adaptation Conference in Rimini. I'm talking to Professor Juergen Kropp from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. Professor, thank you very much for joining me.
A pleasure.
So your work has focused on analysing complex interactions between human and environment. Have you observed any changes in recent years, recent decades in that sense?
Yes, but it depends a little bit on the group you are referring to. So when you look on politicians, so their attitudes have been changed during the recent decades. Yeah. So when it comes to climate change, what to do. So we brought, as from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, we brought really the climate issue into the political debate. And today, I would really say climate change is no longer a scientific problem; it is a political problem. So we see that we are creating a lot of delays which we not really desire and which are not necessary from the view of a scientist. But the political debates are going a little bit or following maybe other guidelines. Yeah. And here we have the situation that we are not fast enough when we really like to tackle the challenges which will come up with climate change.
So speaking of challenges, what are some of the main challenges that urban areas are facing in transforming, adapting to climate change, becoming more resilient?
Yeah, what we today see is that a lot of people across the world are suffering more and more from the adverse impacts of climate change. So we have very big flood events. We have heavy rain. Cities are becoming flooded. We have increasing avalanches because of the uprising frost borders. Sea level rise is also an issue. So this is observable in any place, more or less in the entire world. Droughts, this is something what I forgot. This is something what we have to face anyway. But we are cheating ourselves a little bit when we think that we can just muddle through. Yeah? So this is not possible. We have to be react actively on particular, let's say, fields of action. One field of action is the urban transformation, which is also one of my research fields. Why urban transformation? We all know that 75% of the emissions are coming from cities. So when we really take climate change serious, we have to solve it in cities. And the question is, how can we do that? It's not so easy. Yeah, so we are talking about mobility and the transformation from combustion engines to battery cars, battery-fueled cars. So this is, of course, one thing. But a lot of energy, a lot of carbon dioxide emissions are embedded in our infrastructure. So we are using materials like concrete, which is, by the way, 2,000 years old, invented by the Romans. But the actual compound which we're using in concrete is cement. And this cement which we're using today has nothing to do with that, what the Romans did. We are producing with any kind of, I would say, cement molecule. Yeah, that's not right. It's carbon oxide. We are creating one molecule of CO2 and release it to the atmosphere. We need additional energy for the cement burning. We need additional energy for the steel production, for the aluminum production, for the plastic production. So in other words, we have embedded huge amounts of energy in our infrastructure. And when we really like to make our infrastructure carbon neutral, or maybe even carbon negative, so that cities would become, let's say, a storage system for carbon dioxide, we have to rethink about structures of cities. So how we put infrastructure together, how we can transport goods and people from A to B. First point, how we regreen our cities, which is a big issue, which, by the way, also helps us to mitigate heat burden. And the third aspect is how we can develop carbon neutral materials. So we have long-lasting experience in using timber, for instance, mass timber. And we have now very good examples for doing mass timber buildings in the US, in Norway, partly also in Germany, but also in Australia. And these are very nice. So they create a very good climate for the people who live in it. They are more heat resilient when you do it in the right way. So they are more earthquake resilient and a lot of other things. So this is just one opportunity. I hear already the criticism of the ecologists saying, oh, don't touch our forests. We need to keep them because of climate change. Absolutely right. But climate change is accelerating. When we really like to keep our forests, and want to maintain them, then we have to start to manage them anyway, because otherwise they cannot follow the borders of their ecological niche. And if we manage these forests, then of course we can also exploit them in a sustainable way. So this is something what we have to emphasize here.
All right, great. So, yeah, I wanted to ask you about some of the solutions for urban transformation, but it seems like, like you say, new
This is
materials.
one.
Yeah, going back to perhaps more traditional techniques,
No, so
management.
it's so when we look on timber construction, so it's highly advanced in terms of technological innovation. We are producing it in a modular sense. Yeah, so we have machineries which are preparing let's say the walls and also the roofs and whatever you can take into account here within days. Put it all on a railway, for instance, or on a lorry, and then transport it to the place where the building should build up at the end. And in a week, you can then move in. So it goes much faster than in traditional ways.
Right, right. Okay. So you've just moderated a session on cross-sectoral multi-scale climate services and upscaling those with a view to mitigation and adaptation. What are the main challenges involved in doing that, in upscaling those climate services?
Yeah, so the climate services, this is really an issue which we were also discussing in the session. So we are flooded by these services. And as we started with this exercise, so I guess it's already 10 years ago, or even more, we had the feeling, okay, so we need to inform people so that the people can make better decisions. This is absolutely still the case. Yeah, so we have to inform people and the relevant people. So not everyone can be an expert in all fields, of course. So therefore, we have to prepare information in the sense that it can be digested and also that it is understandable by the non-experts in the field. But nowadays, we have a huge number of different services which are probably overlapping on all the platforms. So we have one on the European level, so the Copernicus platform, and a few more in Europe. And nowadays, the question comes up for the stakeholders: which kind of platform should I use? So which service should I use, and where can I find it, and how viable are these informations which is produced or provided by the platform? Is it maintained? What's about the data? Are the data checked in terms of data consistency? And all this, here we need to come to a better mechanism, I would say. So interoperability between selected tools would really a desirable issue. From this, we are far away in the moment. But nevertheless, so we have now the very fast development of AI tools. So the AI tools probably can help us in these regards to make things interoperable, yeah? So that we can easily apply it from one case to another, to help the people to make the right decisions or to make the right selections when it comes to particular tools.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned that like a lack of data interoperability between platforms.
No, we do not have really a lack of data. Of course, you can make data always better. That's for sure. And when it comes to climate change, we have always to take into account that all the information we are using are based on scenarios. These scenarios are not creating realities. These scenarios are creating so-called what-if scenarios. So when we do this, then this could happen. And this is something what we also should make clear to the stakeholders. When you go down to the very local scale, most of the decision makers there have the opinion, so they are calculating scenarios. And these scenarios are realities. And that means, in other words, we have to base our particular planning on this particular data. And here I have to say, okay, how the future will develop depends on your decision now. And this is not what they really understand. And here we need to become better. It's not so much an issue of missing data. Of course, databases could always be broadened. It is an issue how we communicate things. And this is still, of course, an ingredient of all good climate services, I would say. So how we communicate, can we make things understandable? Are the issues easily to grasp by the end users? And
Well,
this is
it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I know you also founded the Climate Media Factory, which is unusual for a researcher. You know, often researchers do their research and it stays at a kind of high level, but you've actually made an effort to translate that research and make it more accessible. So tell me about, what sparked the foundation of that, and, how's it gone?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. It's now a little bit more than 10 years ago. It happened during the discussions about the potential hockey stick scandal. Yeah. So this climate scandal in 2007. So at this time we were blamed. So scientists were blamed about the climate output and the climate data. Climate deniers and skeptics. They were saying that we have tweaked the data somehow so that they are pointing in the direction we like to see. And this, of course, was not the case. And at this time, I had the feeling, okay, when this is not understood by the people, then, of course, we should try to communicate it adequately to them. So how can we do that? Excuse me. And then I met, and this just happened by chance, then I met a colleague from the Potsdam Film University. Yeah? So Potsdam has a long tradition in doing films and movies, and he was an expert also in communication. And we discussed several months about the issue, and then we came up with a project idea, sent a proposal to the federal government, and they gave us the funds at the end. And then we developed ideas how to communicate. And one of our major elements in our communication tools was that we created a kind of a complexity on demand issue. Complexity on demand means that you give it into the hand of the user to decide how far he or she likes to go in an online tool, for example. So when you overstretch the capacities of an end user, then it doesn't make sense, because then you have lost your user. And this is what we included in our work. Yeah, so complexity on demand. Then we try to separate complex problems in very small pieces.
Yeah, bite size.
And explain it in very short movies. So most of them were not longer than 3.5 minutes. Animated videos in particular. So which made the things more edutainable, so to say. Yeah, and with some of them we got a lot of, or we had a lot of. For some of them we had a lot of YouTube hits, sometimes more than 250,000 in just 4 weeks, which is huge when you compare it to the presentation of scientific results to other results on YouTube, for example. So we won also a lot of prizes. We were quite successful with these tools, and I'm quite happy with this, and just a couple of years ago, I gave it into the hand of younger people.
So that legacy continues. Yeah. All right. That's a really inspiring example. Okay, so Professor, we've covered quite a lot of topics now. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Any sort of takeaways you'd like to give to people?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I said it already earlier. So we are cheating us a little bit, or we are cheating ourselves a little bit with all the strategies which we are developing. Climate change is really accelerating. It is a threat for modern societies. And when we're not coming up really with successful measures which can bring us down with the emissions, then it could happen that even at the end of the century, we are going beyond 3 degrees. 3 degrees is the global average. And a lot of the heat which we are producing with our emissions is uptaken by oceans. almost a half, if not more. That means, in other words, the oceans have a cooling effect. And over land, this can imply, let's say, even a double increase of this global average. So that means over land we could even approach
6 degrees.
Let us assume for the moment 2 degrees, that we are just slightly transgressing the 2 degree threshold. But even that is then by far too high. I don't want to live in a world of 4 degrees. So, and here, this is a pledge to everyone. We have to make clear that we are not fast enough in our activities, but I have no clear idea how we can accelerate things. So let's say when I'm coming back to the cities, of course, you cannot demolish huge cities and to rebuild it in 20 years. It's also impossible. Yeah. So that means innovation is still necessary. We have to develop solutions, and this is something on which we should work further on.
All right. Professor Juergen Kropp, thank you very much for your time and for explaining these very, very challenging, very complex issues to us.
Thank you very much.